In this session, we're going to take a look at essential tips and tricks that you need to know if you're on a help desk in Microsoft 365. Stay tuned. Greetings everyone, welcome back to the channel. Andy Malone, Microsoft MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. On today's episode, I'm going to take a look at the help desk scenarios that you may encounter while working with Microsoft 365. We're also going to look at the tools, tips and tricks that you need to know that's going to make your life a lot easier. Now, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead, bump that subscribe button up there, ring the bell and come and join our great community. And if you enjoy the video, then please, of course, hit the like button. It really does help the channel. Questions, comments, as ever, just get those down below. So I think without any further ado, let's dive in and take a look at some of these scenarios. Enjoy. So first things first, kicking off here in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the obvious things to look for first of all. So down here we have the little headset. This is your support center here, and this is where you can place a new support request. Obviously any service requests that you've put in. There's also, if you've got or one of your customers has got a customer lockbox, this is particularly useful. So what you can do is if you go to role assignments, and in your role assignments, if I just scroll down here, one of the options is the customer lockbox approver. And this can be somebody within the organization. Now, the customer lockbox approver is really useful because what normally happens is when you submit a request to Microsoft, the engineer will help you and you'll do your job and everything's fine. But the thing is that the engineer will have access to the customer data and the customer information. Whereas if you use the customer lockbox system, essentially any request to access your data need to be approved by the engineer's manager and then secondly approved by you. So it can be really, really useful in a high security environment. Please note that this is only available with an E5. In addition, you can also go into the support area here, and if you come down, you've got a few options. This is, of course, as I said, where you can place your service requests, any service requests that are pending. You've got your lockbox, and of course, if you've got a contract with Microsoft, you've also got the hardware support area here. Now, of course, as well as managing it all online, you can also manage everything through the mobile apps as well, which are available on both Android and iOS. So you could literally be sipping a beer on a beach and managing to administer your entire environment. And of course, there's also one for Microsoft Azure as well. So not only can you manage Azure Active Directory and everything in Microsoft 365, but you can even manage your virtual machines. How cool is that? And if you're a Microsoft Managed Partner, or you'd like to be, why not consider signing up for Microsoft 365 Lighthouse? It's a tool that allows you to manage all of your E3 and Business Premium customers in one single portal. So you can manage things like security settings. So if there's a problem with a virus, you can not just fix a single machine or every single device with a single click, thus making a standard configuration really easy to deploy and manage. Now, in addition, you can also deploy Microsoft Defender's products, which of course will protect you from nasties out there, such as malware. So it's a really superb solution. And the really nice thing about Lighthouse is it's absolutely free. So if you're a Microsoft partner, or if you want to be, you can just simply sign up to the Microsoft Cloud Partner Program and take advantage of this and start managing all of your customers' tenants in one single portal. Very cool indeed. Now, one of the most common issues that I hear of in Microsoft 365, and in fact through my experience, you can go into settings here, and if you go into domains, this is obviously where you can add in a customer domain. So by default, when you create a Microsoft 365 tenant, it's normally tenant.onmicrosoft.com, which is the default. But in most cases, your customer is going to want their own domain name. So in this case, we simply go through the wizard and we add the domain name here. Now, in this case, I can start the setup just to show you. This is an example. And one of the things you're going to need to do is prove that you own the domain name. And what this will do is it will generate a text record. So it will be a random number. And what you need to do is you need to create a DNS record either on the customer's website by dropping a file onto their website or simply just editing a text record on their site. The name of the text record is just the @ symbol followed by the random number. So in essence, it would typically look like this. So if I just click next, you can see here that it's typically in this format. So ms equals ms, and then it's going to have this random number on the end. So all you need to do is create the txt record, copy that across, paste it in, and then wait a few moments and then verify it. Now, occasionally you need to click on this a few times. Sometimes it's the timing, connection issues, but more often than not, it's fine. Now, 90% of problems with DNS is down to this. So you've not done it correctly. So again, really, really simple to do that. Now, once you've verified that, it will then get you through to the second stage, which are all your additional DNS records. So things like your SPF records, your MX records. So if you want Exchange, if you want Teams and so on, there are a number of DNS records that you need to add. But the really nice thing about this now is that Microsoft are really making this as simple as possible. So again, if you've not seen my DNS video, I'll add the link to my description and feel free to go ahead and check that out. But that is a big problem area. Now, while we're here in the admin center, I just want to go to the health dashboard here. And when we're talking about network issues, check out the network connectivity tool. This can be really, really useful, as this shows you if there are any kind of incidents or any issues in any of Microsoft's data centers worldwide. And it can also let you see if there's any kind of issues in terms of overall performance. Now, it may be possible that there are services that you could improve on here. So again, this provides some insights and also maybe some tips and tricks. So you can find the location details, you can find the history details of performance. So if you're looking for geo support, that is data centers support all over the world. So if you're a multinational organization, you definitely want to take a look at this. It's really, really useful. Now, while we're here, just a quick mention about software updates for our users in Microsoft 365. Here we have two types of updates. So you've got both Microsoft 365 and you've also got Windows as well. Now, again, it's really important that you want to have a look at the Windows release health. So this will keep you updated with all the latest updates from all the various products that Microsoft have got. In addition, the other thing you want to take a look at is if you go into the settings area here, if you go into the organization settings, and if you just scroll right down here, there are a few things here that you might find useful. So first of all, what's new in Microsoft 365? So if there are updates that are being released here and you don't want the user to receive a particular update about a feature, so for example, maybe you're not ready for that feature yet, then you can block that feature. So, or you can block the message so that it doesn't let the user know. And that can be really, really useful. Now, other things in the support center are definitely worth looking out for are things like the Microsoft 365 installation options. Super important. So again, you can specify when do you want the apps to roll out? As soon as they're available? Do you want them to go on a monthly basis? And we call this, of course, an enterprise channel. Or do you want to go for every 6 months? So if you're a very large organization and you literally have thousands of users, then again you might want to consider that. But again, in this case, the default setting as soon as they're available. Now, in terms of installation settings here as well, you can specify what users can and cannot install. So in this case, you can see I've got both Windows and mobile devices, and I've also got apps on the Mac as well. Now, just one other quick tip here that you might find useful. If I click onto, let's say, active users here, and I go into a particular user account. So if I go into a Dell's account here, for example, I'm often asked, that's how you can obviously control how the apps get deployed. But what if there's a particular app that you don't want deployed on a user's machine? Well, if you go into the apps here and the user's account settings, you can see that all the different apps are actually listed here. So if there's a particular app that you don't want the user to get access to, so for example, it might be something like Xala, it might be something like Staff Hub. So if you don't want Adele to have access to Staff Hub, you can actually remove it here and she won't even see it. And then all you do is simply save the changes. That's quite a useful tip actually. So I'm going to turn my attention now to Microsoft Entra, and here in the Azure Active Directory Admin Center, I want to scroll down, and a couple of issues that I've noticed people are having. If you come into hybrid management, and of course we all know Azure AD Connect, and if you've not seen my videos on Azure AD Connect, then definitely go ahead and check those out on my identity playlist. But essentially, if you've got Active Directory on premises, you've essentially got two choices that you can connect. So we've got the tool which is called Connect Sync, which is the traditional Azure AD Connect tool, and you can download this full-blown tool, and this is fantastic for full directory synchronization. If you've got hybrid Exchange server, hybrid SharePoint, all of those things. Key thing that you need to know, by the way, is this particular tool synchronizes every 30 minutes. So if you've got a fairly large directory, it will sync every 30 minutes. Andy, can I sync less than that? Yes, of course you can. You can use PowerShell. The downside of that, though, is if you start syncing less than 30 minutes, Microsoft won't technically support you because things can go wrong. Now, I'm often asked, Andy, is it a good idea to move to the Cloud Sync tool? And again, I've demoed this tool before, and definitely go ahead and watch that video. And although this is actually really simple to set up, and essentially you just download an agent onto your domain controller. So essentially just download the agent, really simple, and basically everything is managed here. In my personal opinion, I don't think this tool is finished yet. It does a great job, but it doesn't have the full capabilities of Connect Sync or Azure AD Connect. So for example, the thing that you need to know here is that it will sync every 2 minutes. So this is every 30 minutes, but this is every 2 minutes. So it sends a pulse out every 2 minutes. It can't sync hybrid Exchange, and you can't do things like pass-through authentication with it. You can only do password hash sync. So it definitely has limitations. So before you start rolling out these tools, make sure that you read the associated documentation here. It's really useful. So while we're here in Azure AD, I just want to scroll right down here to the bottom, and this is Learn and Support, and we have the diagnosis tools here. So this is the various diagnosis troubleshooters, and some of these are really, really good, by the way. So if you're having problems with Windows 10, 11 connecting to Azure AD, if you've got sign-in issues from a particular user, having problems registering apps and so on, some of these troubleshooters are really so good, and they will take you through either to training videos, wizards, or they'll take you through to docs.microsoft.com. So again, definitely check out these. They're really useful. Now, one of the most common problem areas in SharePoint is here in the sharing center. And here you can see that I've got SharePoint and OneDrive, and the default setting, of course, is set to anyone. Now, the problem with that, of course, is I do mean anyone. And if you're sharing, for example, with anonymous users, it means that the anonymous user could then reshare your content. And the problem with that, of course, is it's a bit like throwing out a thumb drive containing all your files. You'll never know where it ends up. So why not consider using something a little bit more restrictive? And again, you can customize these dependent on your security policy. So for example, this one is great for new and existing guests. So this allows your users who are using Teams to be able to invite people to participate and collaborate in projects, for example, while at the same time, any guests that have been added to Azure Active Directory, this is really useful because then, they're already there. Now, depending on the kind of business that you're in, you may actually want to consider having only existing guests available. And this can be particularly useful if you've got like a more formal approach. So if you're, let's say, a financial institution and you want to invite a guest, maybe you need to go through some kind of online form to request access, and then an administrator would create the guest account. Alternatively, of course, this is the least permissive, only for people in the organization. So internal use, no sharing whatsoever. So these 4 settings are super important because they configure not just SharePoint websites, but also Microsoft 365 groups and also Microsoft Teams as well. Now, just one quick thing to mention, once you set this at the tenant level, I can then simply go in at the site level here. So if I go into the site level, and let's say here, I'm in Bergen here, I've got the Bergen site here, I can simply go into my settings and then check it out. I can then say, hey, I want to change the settings here, but look, you can't use the top option because it's grayed out at the tenant. But I can make it more restrictive at the individual site level. Now, just while I'm here, you'll notice there's a few familiar things here. If you've been into Microsoft Groups lately, this is exactly the same screenshot. So what I'm going to do is just flip over here. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to go into Teams and Groups. So here in Teams and Groups, again, here is the Bergen HQ, and I'm going to go into the properties here. Now, this particular group is, if I go into settings here, check it out. This is exactly the same screen that we've just seen. Now, again, a couple of issues that might come up here. If you can't receive emails from external guests or people outside your organization, it's because the owner of the group or the admin has switched these email features off. So super important that you switch those on, okay? Now, again, you can also, and this is like really handy, you can set the sharing level here within the group as well. So you don't even need to go into SharePoint anymore. Now, in addition, it's awesome that I can also assign a sensitivity label here to my project. So I can either assign it to the group or the team. Now, just to point out, this doesn't assign labels to the content. You can still assign labels to the content manually. But because this particular group is also a Microsoft team, you can also restrict and control who can create policies and so on here. So that, again, really, really useful. So that's just a little bit about sharing. So just before I leave SharePoint, there's a couple of things I want to show you. I'm going to come into settings here, and this is all your default settings for both SharePoint and also OneDrive for Business. So for example, a very useful thing is if you've got an E3 or above, you can go into the storage limit here, and where it says 1024, you can simply change that to 5 terabytes. How cool is that? Now all of your users have 5 terabytes of storage. That is super useful. Now, I'm often asked questions about troubleshooting OneDrive, And I recently did a OneDrive session, but this is really useful, okay? So you can go in and you can control the sync options. I would definitely make sure that the sync button appears on the OneDrive website. So if you've got the sync client installed, this will initiate the sync process. Remember that the sync client now uses OD sync, OneDrive sync protocol. So that's useful if you've got both kind of OneDrive and OneDrive for Business on the same machine. Very useful for security reasons, allows syncing only on computers joined to a specific domain. So again, mycompany.com, for example, your domain name, so you can push that. And also block uploads of specific file types. So for example, if you don't want people uploading their latest movies or their entire audio collection, again, you can restrict that, because remember, OneDrive for Business is for corporate use. Again, some really useful document articles here that take you through to learn.microsoft.com as well. Now, the last thing that I just wanted to show you is I'm going to come here into policies, and I explain the sharing policies, but the access control policies are super useful, especially for unmanaged devices. So if you're not using Intune, for example, to manage your devices and apps, this can be particularly useful. So again, you can select what level of restrictions you want to have on those unmanaged devices. And likewise, you can also set an idle timeout. So for example, if somebody walks away from SharePoint, it will time them out. Again, you can also push this out, to be honest, through conditional access. This is particularly useful for small businesses. So if you've not got, for example, conditional access as part of your plan, then again, definitely check out these. They're really useful. You can also allow access only from a specific IP address. So for example, if you've got salespeople, you can say, hey, yes, you're allowed to access this data, but only from these IP address ranges. So for example, in the Manchester office, in the New York office, in the Oslo office, and so on. So that can be quite useful. And I've said this many times before. Be very wary of apps that don't use modern authentication. So again, we block access here. So if you've got old apps, old versions of web apps or Microsoft apps that don't support MFA, multi-factor authentication, then this would essentially allow the users to still log on using passwords. In my opinion, this is a serious backdoor and could potentially lead your organization down a dark path. So be very careful with that. You can also restrict OneDrive access as well. Again, you can restrict it only to specific security groups. So again, this is something that you could potentially have a look at. Really useful. So only specific users in particular security groups, and you can manage those, of course, through permissions. So again, definitely check out the access controls. They're really, really useful. So there you have it, just some of the support and help desk tools, tips and tricks that you're going to need to know for Microsoft 365. Hey, listen, I really hope that you find that useful, and if you did, then bump the like button up there. It does make a difference. And if you've not subscribed, well, come on board, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you'll be notified of new postings and videos. Questions, comments, as always, get them down below, and it's been great to see you this week. That's it for today. I'll see you next time around. Thank you very much. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.